Hello everyone and welcome back. Today we are getting into subtracting polynomials. And now I made a big deal yesterday about how if I show you something like this, technically there is a 1 right here that you need to distribute through, distribute meaning multiply, and there is technically a 1 right here that you also need to distribute through. And the reason why I made such a big deal about that is because this is the biggest difference between adding and subtracting polynomials. Because when you distribute this 1 right here, you are not just distributing 1, you are distributing -1. Which means, let's look at the easy part first. So let's do this polynomial over here. When we distribute +1, what we are actually saying is +1 multiplied by -3x squared. And then we are going, let's subtract 1 multiplied by 4x, and let's add 1 multiplied by 2. So you can see that everywhere I had this 1, I multiplied it. Everywhere I had to distribute just got multiplied by +1. This is negative right here, this negative sign, from that negative sign right there. If I want to do the subtraction piece now, every time that I do this multiplication as I'm distributing, it's multiplying by -1. So here's what it would look like. We are saying -1 multiplied by -8x squared. And then we're saying -1 multiplied by 6x, and then -1 multiplied by -9. So whereas before I got like over on this one over here, where I got to just keep the same sign as before for all of these, I don't get to do that anymore, because now it's negative times negative. That's actually going to give me a positive. And then negative times positive, well, that's going to give me a negative. So each of these signs here is actually going to end up getting switched around. If I multiply this all through, 1 times -3x squared is -3x squared. -1 times 4x is -4x. And +1 times 2 is +2. So everything I've written so far was exactly the same as what was just inside of these brackets. But now, when I go to do the rest of this multiplication, -1 times -8, those two negatives will cancel each other out and make a plus sign, which is the opposite of that negative that I started with. And then -1 times +6, that's going to be -6x, which again is the opposite of what I started with. -1 times -9, that's +9, which is the opposite. So the reason why we make such a big deal out of this distribution part is because when you are subtracting, all of the signs inside of here actually have to get flipped around. Really easy to make a mistake and get everything else wrong moving forwards if you forget about that negative. But after this, and I've kind of written all over my steps up here, it's the same things you have to do. So we're going to group like terms. So I have, as a reminder from the last video, I have 3 different kinds of terms, and it's based on the exponent on the variable, which is x. So these are my x squared terms. Those are the ones that I color-coded red. These ones are my x terms, which I color-coded green. And then I have my constants, which I color-coded blue. -3 of something plus 8 of something is 5 of that same thing. -4 minus 6 is -10, and 2 plus 9 is 11. So we should end up with that right there. let me go through, and I actually want to talk about the way that I showed it right here, because going from orange to orange, you can see again that sign had to change, sign had to change, sign had to change. Each one of those signs is different from how it started right here, and that's because we had to take this negative, and I've shown it just as a negative in this part, but that negative had to go on to all three things inside of those brackets. It did not just go on to this one and then stop right there. It's on to all three. So then we could combine or group like terms and combine the same way as before. Next example, I'm going to work with a picture. So that is 2x squared, and I'm going to make sure I use the brackets. Then I have negative x, and negative x. So 3 of them is negative 3x plus 2. Minus, so this is an x squared, and I have 2 x's, and I have 3 negative ones. First thing I'm going to do on this side, I get to just drop the brackets because all of the signs stay the same. But over here, if I want to get rid of those brackets, I'm going to change every sign out front. So this one started as positive, this one started as positive, that one started as negative. I'm going to flip those. So that positive is going to become negative. This positive 2x is going to become negative. And this minus 3 is going to become positive. So I distributed a negative, which made me have to flip everything. Now, so I wrote out polynomial expressions, I distributed, time to group terms. Two x squared minus 1x squared is 1x squared. Negative 3 minus 2 is negative 5. 2 plus 3 is 5. On to the next one. A little bit more stuff going on here. So that is 3x squareds, and then I have 5x's and 2 negatives. In brackets, it's negative x squared, and then I have 3 negative x's and 9 positives. So, first one, I get to just drop the brackets. Oops, I forgot to write x. Second one though, I have to switch every sign. So instead of minus x squared, it'll be plus x squared. Instead of minus 3x, it's plus 3x. And instead of plus 9, it's minus 9. Now it's time to group. And now it's time to combine. And we end up with that as our answer. Let's do one where I start with some negative x squareds. And you'll notice I'm not putting these in order for you anymore. So I'm starting with, I have negative 2x squareds, I have 3 of those negative x's, and I have 5 positive ones. And then I want to subtract just 1x squared. I have 6 negative x's, and I have 6 positive ones. So we'll go, first thing, it's just a positive 1 outside, so I get to drop the brackets. Keep everything the same. Next one, I need to flip every sign because I'm distributing that negative through onto everything. And multiplying by negative makes the sign flip around. So what we'll end up with is that I've written out all of the polynomial expressions, and I simplified, I got rid of the brackets. Time to group. And now it's time to combine. Oops. So negative 3x squared plus 3x minus 1. So I don't have one of those weirder kind of like perimeter ones like the one we had yesterday. The steps for all of these, like for adding and subtracting, are very similar. Biggest thing you need to keep in mind when you are subtracting instead of adding is that this sign right here, because that's a negative, that is going to change every sign in front away from what it started as.